You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the eMarketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm here today with Jake Passini, who's VP of Strategy and Analytics at ListTrack. And the ListTrack name sort of talks a lot about your roots of being in the email list management business, which is still a huge part of what you do. But how do you guys define yourselves these days that you've gotten into all these other forms of push notification and segmentation?
Yeah, it did definitely started as email about 20 years ago, but it has evolved into a cross-channel marketing automation platform with email, SMS, web push, app push, and pulling in all of that data centralized in one spot. So predictive analytics, product recommendations, some audience management and identity. So everything involved, where the way I like to describe it is, if you knew who the person was, every way you would market to them, right? Like, so you know their email, you know their SMS, you know their devices, all that form of marketing, not trying to get new people in, but once you had people, how would you market to them?
Absolutely. And, squeezing as much juice out of that consumer and customer in a way that they've given you permission to do so. And you find that perfect balance of marketing messages is key. So obviously that's your day job, but do you also teach a broader segment of marketing in a sort of teacher role?
Yeah. So during the day, my Bruce Wayne is helping clients, grow their business every day in digital, in e-com space. But at night, I put on, my Batman is that I actually teach marketing analytics and digital marketing at Villanova University in undergrad and MBA programs. So really, I eat, breathe, sleep, and live this stuff. And I just love doing everything about it. And it actually, to what you were speaking about, people opting in, I mean, that's a big piece of it too, right? With, everything needing to be first and zero party data now, right? People needing to opt into things, that acquisition is key. I like to say that people, spend tons of money and dump truck money into paid search and into social and virtual and any way that you can drive people in. But it actually ends up, I like to use the analogy, actually, Kevin, have you ever had a mouse in your house?
I have.
Okay. Well, so I had one a couple of years ago and I heard it when I was sleeping, and I like perfect quiet. Right. And so I hear it and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to get one of those traps with the cheese. Sorry if there's any, PETA people or whatever, but I was going to catch it that way. And then I put it in the garage. I'm like, okay, that's probably how something comes into the house. A couple days go by, I don't catch it. I'm like, okay, I'm a data-driven marketer, right? So now I'm gonna put it in a few places. I put it in the kitchen, I put it in the basement, I put it in the attic. Week later, still nothing. I go, ugh, this is a sophisticated mouse, right? So then I start using Milano cookies, Cheez-Its, going on the cheese thing, some peanut butter. No joke, it was like it was a game of Clue where it's like, Miss Sanchez in the library with the axe. I caught this mouse in the upstairs bathroom with the sour cream and onion potato chip. I promise. But the analogy of the story is that, like, people spend so much money to get, users to the site, right? It's like inviting mice into your house. I was putting a trap anywhere and any way to get the mouse, because that was the most important thing, right? When you do all this work to get people to your website, the key is then making sure that you get them opted in so that you can help them on their journey with their marketing and learn that way. So, whether that's entry pop-ups, sweepstakes, buttons that they can push versus pull marketing, exit, like any way that you can get them to engage with you and give them your phone number, email address, devices and data and stuff like that. Being able to get that data to then help them, that'll help improve conversion rate and then their loyalty with the brand too through that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, my agency does a lot. My agency teams do a lot of taking that dump truck of money that you alluded to, which is the paid search, paid social, and other media dollars. And one of the things I try to explain to everybody, both my staff and clients and prospects, is that conversion rate optimization and top mid funnel, getting opt-ins, that gives you leverage when you buy media. Right? Media that would otherwise not be affordable becomes affordable when your conversion rate improves, even if it's conversion rate to an opt-in, and your AOV improves or lifetime value improves, like all those levers from sort of a compound marketing perspective give you more leverage to buy the media that's more expensive that would otherwise not be feasible to buy.
And then that next piece of that ends up becoming like, so CLV is actually a big passion of mine, because I think sometimes people interpret it and use it the wrong way, right? Trying to increase CLV, very difficult, very expensive, not worth the effort. The key to CLV is the segmentation and understanding who and what makes your best customers. To what you were talking about, which sources bring you the most relevant traffic, right? Like there could be certain types of virtual selling ads or influencers that bring a really relevant market to you, and it's a really high conversion rate. They buy your best products and they stay for a long time, right? So my example is, I don't typically shop at Nordstrom's. That's very high end, but like, let's just say you and I walk into Nordstrom's, right? If you go in and you buy a $10,000 suit as your first purchase, and I go in and I buy just a sport jacket, for $85 for mine.
I had you down for a tie clip, Jake.
Oh yeah, tie clip, do that too. I mean, whatever way I can impress. I actually have those new Lululemon men's pants. Like I'll give them a shameless, plug there. They are fantastic. You can move, squat, anything. They look great, but they feel awesome. So I'm definitely that I'm brand loyal to. But anyway, so your lifetime value. So like your first purchase is the most important and indicative purchase in your lifetime. The reason is actually the majority of people only are one-time customers. It's very difficult to get a repeat order. And so just at face value, you've spent $10,000 on your first order. I've only spent $100, right? Do you know how many times I got to buy to get to your one order? But if you spent $10,000, you're maybe more invested in that type of thing. You maybe have more income, all that stuff. It's all reflective in other variables. Like the key to a brand, the key to Nordstrom is finding where they can find more of you. They want to find people like you, right? Trying to convince me to buy a $10,000 suit, that's expensive. Like maybe you could get me to go from 100 to 150 or 200 or 300, but you're not going to get me to spend thousands of dollars at a time. And you're kind of wasting your money there. So like the concept of increasing lifetime value, the best way to increase lifetime value is just find the customers that have higher lifetime value and then find more of them. And then find the ways that they interact with your brand and your website and your channels and do more of it. Make it easier for them. And then that experience then will cause them probably to buy more, but it's the better people buying more then. Instead of trying to take a Jake and get me to buy another 30 times, find 2 more Kevins. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And, I love the way Listrak and a couple of other platforms possibly, but certainly Listrak allows us to segment into those people, to put Kevin into a bucket separately and message to me differently than they would message to you, because I'm sure they'd still like to get you to buy a few more things, understanding that your average order value would be 1/10 of mine, and they obviously want me to spend more. So they might message you with socks, and they might message me with an Hermes tie, right? So the getting the messaging right there is key, and that's, I think, part of the biggest evolution in the email marketing and push notification space. But a lot of the ESPs, including yourselves, that started out with sort of in the newsletter side of things, I've seen some marketers sort of abandon the one-size-fits-all newsletter. Are there still situations where having that regular newsletter that is everybody reads the same thing, is that dead, or is there still a reason to have that?
I'd say it's what were the movies? I think it was actually one of the Batmans with Mr. Freeze. Like he's prolonging his life because, everything slows down. So it's on ice being preserved. Like it was, when they were preserving meat, trying to cross the Atlantic, all the way back or whatever, because it has its purpose. If you have something really important to say, really important, business got acquired, or Lululemon went from women's to men's, to let everyone know that they've now started in men's. or you're doing the first time ever a 50% off sale and you've never done it, like really big news, yeah, send it to everyone. You'll have a chance of re-engaging some old people, some contacts that seemed dead. It's actually, the analogy I like to give there is, those truffles, those pigs or like the pigs that can find those truffles, they can smell them, but like if you looked at the dirt, you would have no idea that it's there, right? And they can see it. Like those are you can sometimes revive some, seemingly dead contacts, or, find those hidden truffles, engaging some people who haven't engaged with your brand in a while, but you can't do it weekly. I think that's, the weekly, the monthly, the quarterly. I don't think it's dead in the sense that there's still a reason to send to everybody every now and then, once a year, twice a year. But yeah, with any cadence, it is dead because, Isaac Newton, I think he's the one that did every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction, right? That's the way marketing needs to be. If someone is on your website today looking at sunglasses, they're in market. They're looking for sunglasses. See what they looked at. Send them more info about those sunglasses. See that they're looking at polarized prescription. Send them more other polarized prescription. People who viewed this one, viewed that one. People who viewed this one, bought that one. Hey, here's how you decide between the prescription types and sizes that we have. All relevant stuff. Like, I think it's so when someone interacts with you, you as the brand want to interact with them, like equal and opposite, right? Just give them back more of what they're looking for. The problem with that newsletter is like you're sending to people who haven't even heard your brand or been to your website in 3 years, right? So that then ripples into like, oh, we're gonna annoy people. We're gonna have too many unsubscribes, right? No, your unsubscribes are all people that aren't interested in your brand. Like people say, oh, people are, we're sending 3.4 emails a week and 2.2 text messages a week. That's not true. No one's getting 3.4. We can get technical and say, because you can never get a 0.4 of a email, right? But no one is actually getting 3.4. You have a ton of people getting 0. All these dead, disengaged contacts that don't get any. And then you have some really hyper engaged contacts that have been to your site 4 times in the last day, looking at all different levels and depth and getting to products and categories and different categories, and then putting something in the cart, right? They're engaging deeper every time with your brand. When you send them more info, they're probably clicking those emails. They probably need to get back and continue their search and then look at the other things that you sent that is useful and add on things, right? Like, so that's very useful. So you have a cluster of people getting 15, 20 emails a week or texts a week. Then you got a mass amount of people getting 0. And then you end up at the average of 3.3. But that's not a problem, right? Like, you want to actually keep engaging and automating messages and marketing and content to the people engaging with you. And then the people that are not interested at all, that's who you don't want to touch a lot, so it's dead in a weekly and bi-weekly setting. It's not dead forever. I mean, you definitely yearly, or when you have big news, you want to reach out to people. But you got to market to people when they're in market with you.
Yeah, I would agree that the editorial bar for general newsletters is way higher than it used to be. I think if you're a brand that's like a storytelling brand, or there's something very newsworthy, to your point, that rises to that level of importance where you believe that you're doing the consumer a favor, even if it's a non-salesy email, but it relates to some change in the industry or some change, in the efficacy of something, right? Then it sort of rises to the bar of newsworthiness. So there are still situations where it makes sense to do that, but not nearly as many as there were before. So obviously, ListTrack services both B2C marketers and B2B marketers, right? So when you think about, the way CRM, if you might call it that way, is used in B2B environments, and then customer segmentation models might be used in the B2C environments. What are some general best practices that are different when you're talking about B2B marketing, which might have a longer sales cycle or higher average, order value or whatever, versus, B2B versus B2C?
So B2B and B2C, maybe, there's probably a lot of people who will argue with me, but I still stick to Isaac Newton. Like I still like equal and opposite. Okay. I don't care if it's B2B or if it's B2C. If someone is interacting with you, you get them relevant info back, right? Now, how you market to them outside of that, yeah, there's many more signals that you look at, but they're the standard ones. I mean, recency rules the world, right? Recency of engagement, frequency of site visit, recency of purchase, and then the details of it, right? So with B2B, we might be much more oriented around the size, the specific items and number of things. There might be more branching out on the B2C side where you're trying to get cross-pollination. But I still truly believe that when you're marketing to people, it's just taking in all of the data signals that they have and giving them relevant experiences back. B2B or B2C, you're probably going to contact B2B much more frequently, to your point. So you can have a little stronger cadence. But you don't want to wait too long when an interaction has happened. I mean, I'll give you the story. Mother's Day is always on a Sunday, right? So it's Friday night, sitting on the couch. My wife says, my parents and your mom are coming over on Sunday for Mother's Day. And I go, oh God, Mother's Day. Like I forgot, not only did I forget from my mom, I actually forgot from my wife too. But then I'm like, so I go do what everybody does. I open up Amazon, right? And I'm looking and I find a perfect gift for my mom. I order it. I literally, you ever heard of mic drops, right? Like the youngins with their mic drop. I cell phone drop on the couch. And then my wife says, what happened? I said, well, I got the perfect gift for my mom. Oh, what'd you get? So I show her. She goes, oh, that is a perfect gift. Get one for my mom too. Right back into Amazon, buy again, right? Like when recency really, like it is the only thing that matters in the world. Like I bought one and then you think, oh, I got the order, like especially in B2B, in both B2B or B2C, you might think, oh, they only buy once a year. Baloney. People buy in clusters. Like you're much more likely to buy then 2 seconds later, forget you want it for something else or something else you need to get attached to it. And then you literally buy 3 seconds later versus 3 weeks later or 3 months later or a year later, like the curve. And I mean, so we got the camera looking, so it goes like that, right? Like very likely right away. And then it just keeps shrinking after that. So, that the key to me is like when someone interacts, you interact back, you take all the information in. I mean, that, speaking about Liztrack, I mean, that's what's gotten great about the evolution of the platform. So we now have an identity platform attached where, so people, there's devices all over the place being able to, through technology, identify that, hey, you actually know this is Kevin on your site, but you don't know that it's Kevin on that device. So, hey, now we can match that for you so you can track more data and then mark it out. And then when you have email and SMS and push and transactional stuff all in different systems, they don't communicate in real time. Like how many times, I don't know if you're where in the world is Kevin Lee? Like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I don't know if you're much of a traveler, but have you ever booked airplane tickets and then you go into social media and it shows you the advertisement for Southwest or for Delta, like the community, like you already made the purchase. Like you're literally seeing digital ads after you made the purchase and they can't even the simplest data point of purchase. They can't even coordinate at the right time. So in Liztrack, when you have your email, your SMS, your acquisition, your identity all in one, you can orchestrate and like, hey, what's the channel that they most recently interacted with? What device? Okay, well, that's the one I'm going to send the message to. And you can weave it to them the way they are interacting with you. And then you save money because you don't have 6 vendors all trying to make off of you. And you actually also save money because you'll send less in general because you'll send to the right medium. And then you'll actually increase revenue. So that's really the piece of where you put all of that data into one. And yeah, you have audiences and CRM and you can segment that way. But even just when they interact with you, getting the right message to them that way. So to what you were saying with the list, with the newsletter, you want to orchestrate everything with the first and zero party data, as I just spoke about. But there are times, have you ever seen The Office, the show The Office?
Sure.
Okay. I think it was Dwight, not sure who, if I got it wrong, someone will correct me. But I think Dwight came up with a thing called woofing, which was when you would fax, call, email, pager smoke signal, and carrier pigeon someone at the same time when you needed someone, right? You want your automations to work in the push and pull. And then when you have something really important, you want to woof. You want to use every signal. Like, I don't know, like the example that I'll give, you know, those Uni pizza grills?
Yeah.
You have one? I wanted one so bad when the pandemic started. And I picked it out, and there was a cart, and there was all this. But I knew that if I didn't have the custom, perfectly sized cover for it to keep it outside, if I had to move it in and out of the garage, I'd never use it. But if I left it right next to my grill, I'd use it all the time. So I had it all ready, but I didn't want to make any purchase. But the thing was out of stock. Uni only had email out of stock notifications, so I signed up, right? I'm working one day. That night I have to go teach. I'm driving to Villanova. I'm at a red light. Don't worry, I'm not checking my email while driving, but I see the red dot. And I'm like, I thought I had checked my email just before I left. And then I go, oh, this was a personal one. Oh my God, it was the out of stock notify from Uni Grill at 7:30 in the morning, and I didn't see it till 5:15 at night. I'm like, oh my God, with the supply chain issues going on in the pandemic, like they probably sold out in half a day and I'm not going to be able to get it. I pulled into a parking lot, went real quick, found it, put my cart together, and then made the purchase. I kid you not, Kevin, the next day when I showed my team at work talking about it, the cover was completely sold out and out of stock again, that quick. Back to the woofing point, I would have taken that alert. Like people always think, oh, we don't want to send it in 2 mediums. Oh, we're going to annoy the consumer. No, I would have taken a carrier pigeon, a smoke signal, an email, an SMS, a phone call, like someone knocking on my door. Hey, it's back in stock. Come get this thing now because you really freaking want it, right? Like, you know what I mean? And so like we all have things like that as consumers that we're interested in, but then we just, when we try to do marketing, we close it up and like, oh, we can't bother people. No, there are people who really want the info. You just got to get it to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I when I talk to my team about it, I talk to them about it as being a relevancy bar, right?
Yes.
Which is the more relevant that messaging is to the consumer, and the more they would likely be annoyed at you if you didn't send it, right? Yeah. That's the more important way to engage that channel. So clearly people have a different relevancy expectation in an SMS message than they would in an email. Like if you send them an email and it's not perfectly relevant, they'll forgive you. If you send an irrelevant SMS message, you're probably going to have to earn that forgiveness back, right? So there is absolutely a relevance bar that is different in SMS and browser push. I'm not really sure if that like falls closer to the SMS or email side. It's probably somewhere in the middle, and then app push probably depends on the general mission of the app. Like what mission does that app play in the interaction between yourself and the consumer? But I would certainly recommend that people think about relevance as the bar by which they determine whether or not to use the woof method or whatever you called it.
Yeah, that's a great, there are times, and again, it's not all the time, but there are times that woofing is exactly to your relevance bar, that it ding, ding, ding hits every single thing people need to know. Like when the PS5 comes out and, Target gets more in stock, everybody's dying for that new thing. So.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that Listrak and a few of the other platforms do now is this idea of really triggering, right? The same way that you talked about the out of stock message being a trigger that was set in the e-com system, right? Because it was based on a specific behavior unique to you. So what are some other good examples of sort of either triggered or choreographed email and push notifications? And I would say the difference between a trigger and a choreograph is the trigger is it was extremely specific to you, whereas a choreographed one is more like a storytelling cadence that you pre-planned and an entire segment of consumers see the choreographed elements. So I'd love to hear some examples of where you and your team, came up with some really cool choreography of messaging for clients, or maybe there was just a really cool trigger that you set up.
Yeah, choreography, not in the words of Iggy Azalea, it does not get fancy. Choreography is like recency rules the world. The thing happened, you hit them now, you hit them tomorrow, you hit them the next day. If you have something If you say, I'm going to hit them now, and then I'm going to send them something in 30 days and then 60, if you'd switch 30 to 20, your performance would be better. If you switch 20 to 10, like it's just the way it is, right? The interesting one's the trigger one. I mean, we have all the standard triggers, like a welcome series, a loyalty, a post-purchase, site abandonment, product abandonment, product page abandonment, cart abandonment, product alerts. So like low inventory, back in stock, price drop, anything like that. Those are pretty standard in the industry. I mean, we do them. I think we do them as well as anybody else. I think the exciting thing coming to Liztrack is as part of our Journey Hub platform, you're going to be able to create anything you can API over from the website. Any event that you create and you send that comes from the website or sent over through API, you can then have a trigger created. So if you wanted to create a trigger when our identity platform can identify you on site and then you played a product video, you can create that as a trigger, and then boom, that video comes over that someone played product video, and then now you can have a triggered set based off of that. You can have someone who's been on site a certain amount of time, clicked over to the customer services page. You can have a trigger that says, hey, do you need help? These are our contact hours. Here's when you can chat, whatever. I think that the future is creating triggers, right? What interactions are indicative of value or brand engagement to your brand? And then let's create triggered experiences off of it, right? So, when someone reads a Q&A or submits a Q&A, like anything happening on site or within the brand that you can track, you can have over and become a trigger in Liztrack coming soon.
Cool. There's an entire class of marketers. I guess if you had to ask them to define themselves, they'd call themselves funnel marketers, right? They really love the storytelling, almost like infomercial style of selling, right? Which of course.
Oh wait, there's more. Just kidding. Yeah.
Only if you order before midnight tonight, though.
Yeah.
Because they have to have that urgency. But they like to choreograph sort of a storytelling cadence, which is sort of very different than a promotional cadence. Do you have any clients that are sort of using Liztrack in a funnel marketing style of really having an ongoing story going out via the push notification as opposed to sort of promotional messages?
We do. But not to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'll always have them run a test versus product oriented, and product oriented always wins out, man. Every time, like use Instagram, use social, use those sorts of things. The website itself to tell your stories, have content that you can then have links to, help your SEO, all that great shit. Sorry, all that great stuff. But like, when you're reaching out to someone in their personal ways, email and SMS, I agree the relevancy bar is different, right? It is higher for SMS, but the still email, SMS, and push. Like, people are on your website for a reason. They're really not too often, depending on who you are, there for the story. They're there for some form of interaction. And so there are people doing that. But whenever they get the serving of having product oriented versus story oriented, they usually never turn back. Yeah.
That's a good point. So, there are a lot of marketers and that really try to minimize the amounts of time that they're using promotions, because they realize that it can degrade brand value, the willingness of the people to pay more, or it can, in some cases, habitualize them into thinking like, oh, I should only buy when there's a deal, right? So when you've got a brand marketer that's trying to preserve and build their brand value and brand equity, as opposed to potentially and they're concerned about sort of over promotion, are there certain kinds of messages that let that marketer have their cake and eat it too? In other words, stuff that still triggers the behavior that you're looking for, but isn't just a pure discount or isn't just a pure buy one, get one free.
Well, shameless plug for Liztrack there. I mean, one of the key things that we do in our, CRM and analytics is discount affinity. And are they a discount buyer or not? Are they a coupon buyer or are they not? Like, there are segments of your customers that are brand loyal, buy at full price, and really don't need anything. Can market to them different. There's another segment that honestly, it's going to be every time you send an offer, and you can know that and predict it and then be okay and take advantage of it. So there's a certain piece of it where there's segmentation of coupon affinity and discount affinity, and then dynamically changing the content in emails based off of that. Someone who needs to have a coupon, maybe, even in their triggered messages there, it is dynamically in there giving them one that you're willing to, but the others you don't, right? And then certain thresholds. So you can play a little bit with that. But then also, in general, more offer will do better than less offer, right? Like, just overarching. If you do 5%, if you do 10%, you can then see the difference in there, but you're not going to get better performance by doing less of an offer. Very straightforward stuff. So it's just, but I remember actually my background before e-com was in the food industry, and I had worked at Dunkin' and then Wendy's, and Wendy's used to be Wendy's Arby's, right? And Arby's was famous for, like, people would only buy when you got those coupon sets out in the mail. Right. So in the example of what you don't want to be, to what you're saying, you don't want to be Arby's, where that once a month flyer is the only spike in sales that anybody would have, and they just come to expect it. So yeah, you don't want to overdo it like Arby's. The brands that truly have no offer, I think eventually, as things become more competitive and whatever within their space, eventually you're going to need some way to jolt extra interest. And, the offer is going to have to come, but you want to be doing segmentation on people who have or have not ever used one. And then, go from there. And you can definitely get a lot of success with that.
Yeah. One thing I also recommend to direct response marketers is when they are going to play with an offer, you can take the same exact offer and merchandise it different ways.
Yes.
Right. So you can merchandise it as, $20 off an order of $100 or more, or 20% off orders over $100. Now, obviously, there's a difference once you cross that threshold, but you never know which one's going to resonate, right? And there are also some pricing studies that will help you guesstimate which one of those might resonate more with a customer or not, because of the way the brain works with anchoring and the way it perceives percentages and the way it perceives dollar values. So, I do recommend people test things like that. If, test the way in which the offer is merchandised, as opposed to just, trying one thing.
I'll always test. Honestly, like, I have a few examples of things. Like, I remember 20 years ago, I was trying to buy something online, and I didn't have a credit card. I was in middle school or whatever. And I asked my mom for her credit card to buy XYZ, and she didn't trust online purchasing. Like, she didn't want to type her credit card into the thing called the internet, right? This was a thing 20 years ago. Now we have such a disdain for having to type in that info that, like, we'll do Shop Pay and all this other stuff and, like, just save my info, and all I got to do is click one button, right? Big change. People used to hate pop-ups, and it's like, oh, this thing in my way. Now it's like, what value are you going to give me to buy from your brand? How do I get the discount? Like, now you expect it. You know what I mean? So things and consumer behavior change. Got to test everything. Not only do you have to test the offers and the, dollar, percent, BOGO, something off the future, sweepstakes, all that kind of stuff to find your right spot. But you then have to actually retest things you already did years ago, because just the consumer and the situation changes,
Absolutely.
My favorite example of it is product recommendations. When they first came out, like, I don't know, probably around 20, 15 years ago, it was like, oh my God, this is creepy. Like, why do they think I'm going to like this thing? Like, why are they showing me that? What are they tracking me? Like, I can't. Now you see a product recommendation. You're like, that product recommendation sucks. This brand's terrible. They got no idea what they're doing. I'm a Pitt Panther, as you can see, I'm a Pitt Panther football player, and they're showing me Penn State stuff. Like, what are they doing? Like, yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania, but I'm not a Penn State fan, right? Like, so, then you actually get mad at the brand for showing you a bad product rec. Right. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, you were creeped out that they even would show you one, So just saying, it all changes. And to your point, you have to keep testing.
So final question, what's the biggest mistake you see marketers making in relationship to email and push marketing, stuff that they shouldn't do that they should do, or they are doing that they shouldn't do?
So I think it comes back to themes that we spoke about. The biggest mistakes they make is trying to decide what they think the best experience should be, and instead of creating reactions to interactions, right? If someone's interacting with you, give them what's relevant, period. Don't worry about over flooding them, anything like that. So the hesitancy to annoy, I think, is the biggest mistake that people are doing. The coolest thing that I think people are doing is the ways that they're generating new traffic, right? So the virtual selling, going to TikTok, just any emergent social channel, being able to test and optimize that to bring in the traffic. Then actually at ListTrack, we work with them to personalize that experience. So like if someone comes from a certain influencer, major one, it's probably hard to do at the mass scale for just little influencers. But if you had Chris Hemsworth sponsor something, and then the pop-up could have him in it because it came from that source, like that, you're actually engaging with the influencer more than the brand at first. So like, what if your welcome series and all your abandonment emails and contacting, like it all had that person's brand colors, that person in it. So it was truly personalized to get you through to the purchase. Then once you have the purchase, then you reintroduce the brand, and then you start going that way. But to actually personalize every experience to the site based on where they came from. And I think that's getting to be much more of the future. And that's what we're excited to work with our clients on.
Great. Well, there's a lot of meat that we covered, and I look forward to staying in touch and learning about things that you guys roll out that take push marketing to even the next level. I love the hyper personalization element, that when the segment is big enough, you start to treat the person special. So I appreciate you jumping on the podcast with me, and look forward to staying in touch.
Anytime, Kevin. Sounds great. Thank you.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.